Okay, Lainie, we're live. Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Tonight I have something extra special for you. Our guest is Lainie Esquivel, polycystic kidney disease patient and member of the PKD Foundation's Advocacy Champions Network. Lainie lives and works in Central California with her husband, her 2-year-old daughter, and her dog. She works in education. Unfortunately, autosomal dominant polycystic kidney disease. Come on, Jim, you have this too. Get it right. Autosomal dominant polycystic kidney disease, ADPKD, runs in her family on her dad's side, as both her grandfather and her father were diagnosed with it. Lainie herself was diagnosed with ADPKD and is currently taking tolvaptan to slow the growth of her cysts. Her knowledge of PKD grew when her mother donated a kidney to her father 5 years ago. Lainie wanted to learn more about it so she could be a better advocate for her parents during the evaluation and recovery process. She continued to learn about PKD through her own personal experience and her desire to act as her own best advocate. At one point in time, she submitted an article to the Voices of PKD from the PKD Foundation and did a video for the Polycystic Kidney Disease Foundation Research Summit. And by the way, both of these links are in the comments to the original broadcast, and there's many other things in there too. So if you want to drill down a little bit on what's going on with Lainie, be sure you check out the comments. She was able to connect with other patients and learn that advocating for the PKD community is a very rewarding way to shift your energy from yourself in order to help find a cure. She has looked for ways to get more involved in the PKD community. It has become her passion. Lainie has said, quote, "Since I started getting involved about a year ago, I've had the pleasure of working on so many different projects and collaborating with absolutely inspiring advocates," unquote. She is a contributing member of the PKD Foundation Advocacy Champions Network, an elite group of PKD advocates. She's also involved with the National Kidney Foundation, and she is a stewardship ambassador with the Polycystic Kidney Disease Foundation to help give thanks for charitable donation. Her experiences have included Zoom meetings with members of Congress all over the country and connecting with her own representatives. Recently, she wrote an op-ed piece on the Living Donor Protection Act that was published in the Fresno Bee newspaper. Please give a warm welcome to our friend, Lainie Esquivel. Lainie, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well, my friend. Doing very well. Did I state everything correctly in the introduction?
You sure did. Thank you so much for that kind introduction.
Please tell us a little bit about your family, your husband, the daughter, even the dog.
Sure. They're all the family. Absolutely. Well, my husband and I have been married for about 7 years. Been together since high school, though. And we just have a really fun life together. I really enjoy everything that makes up our life together. We have a beautiful 2-year-old daughter, and we have a very feisty, we think 8-year-old pit bull. We're not really sure how old he is, but Jim, you and I were talking about dogs a little bit before. We know that they're a fun bunch. They really are, and they keep you on your toes. Our pit bull is a rescue, and he has that kind of spooky face, but really all he wants to do is eat treats all day and snuggle on the couch and maybe occasionally go on a very brief walk around the block, but he's pretty easy. My 2-year-old daughter is just learning so much every day. She'll be 3 in a few short months, and I just can't believe how quickly she's growing up. It's just a joy to be with her every day and see how much she learns each day, how much she just loves the world around her, the questions that she asks, how curious she is about things. And I just feel so grateful to have my amazing husband by my side as my parenting partner and, just my partner in life. And I feel like taking on the adventure of parenting together has been really fun. Obviously parenting it has its moments where it's tough, but we just really enjoy watching her grow together and spending time with her. As a family, we really love cooking together, spending time in the kitchen. Got a little art cart that we love doing arts and crafts together. My daughter just made a pumpkin today with my mom. So I'm really big on just whatever we're doing it all together and enjoying the time that we spend together. All of our extended family also lives nearby, or the majority of our extended family lives nearby. And so we just truly enjoy when we're not working or, doing things that we got to do. We love just hanging out together and talking and exploring and having new adventures together. So feel very fortunate to have the family that I have. I feel like, especially in the world of PKD, their support has just meant so much. And I know that's the case for many folks out there as well. I feel like when we have this family connection to the disease, knowing that, we're all in it together is really powerful and really meaningful. So I'm lucky to have that as well.
And just so we know, what is your husband's name?
My husband's name is Alec.
Alec, and your little girl's name?
Her name is Eliza. And you can't forget the dog. The dog's name is Ducky.
All right. Sounds like a good group to me. Please tell us a little bit about how and where you grew up, your education, your employment history. What's going on with Lainie?
Sure. Well, I've lived in Central California my whole life, my husband as well. I went to college and graduate school all in the area, and I currently work as a school psychologist. I work in the education field. And it's definitely a very busy job, keeps me on my toes. Love having summers off as well. But basically what I do on a day-to-day basis is I work with students with special needs, and I work with students with mental health challenges, and do a variety of different things, wear a variety of different hats to try and help support those students in need to ensure that they have fair, equitable access to education. So I really enjoy it. Definitely, like I said, it's definitely a busy job. The world of education, especially in the last few years, I think has kept us all on our toes. But I really enjoy it. And I've got a lot of people, again, in my family who work in education as well. So yet another family affair.
All right. Please, let's talk a little bit about some of your family experiences with polycystic kidney disease. Talk to us about your grandfather and your father. What was going on there?
Sure. So my grandfather on my dad's side is the first person that we know of who had polycystic kidney disease. And he was diagnosed late in life, I believe in his 60s. and immediately went on dialysis, and unfortunately passed away shortly thereafter. And at that time, my dad and his sister were also tested to see if they had PKD as well, found out that they both did. So my dad was diagnosed, I think he was in his mid-20s, and pretty quickly began to see a nephrologist and began to have everything monitored, and focused on blood pressure management, focused on diet management, building healthy habits. And over time, his kidney function started to decline. I remember as a kid a few times noticing that there were just pain issues. And, my dad is very quiet about it, and, it wasn't really ever anything that was significantly on my radar as a kid. I just remember a few times there being days where he was like, like my back hurts today, I need to lay down on the couch. So it wasn't something that was super present as a kid. And then he, about, I'm trying to remember now, 5 years ago, he received a transplant, and it was, I think, 2 years before that he was listed for the transplant. And so at that time, that was really when PKD got more on my radar. That was when I got tested and found out that I too had PKD. That was when I started to develop more of an understanding of it. And then as my dad started to get evaluated for the transplant process, I really just kind of dove into all the information that I could find. And of course, the PKD Foundation has been such a great resource for me and continues to be a great resource. I just really appreciate how much information they've had with just, you're entering your PKD journey. What are the basic facts? What are the basic things that you need to know, all the way to ways to connect with others and ways to get more involved. So that's been a huge resource for me. But just thinking about my own journey and finding out that I had PKD and processing all of that information at the same time that I was learning that my dad was going to require a transplant, and realizing that, the wait list for a kidney from a deceased donor was more time than he had, was a lot to process all at once. And, as someone who works in the mental health field, it still really kind of took me aback how much emotion came along with that. And so I think as I started to learn what it meant for me, what it meant for my future, at that time, my daughter wasn't born yet. So what that meant for my future kids, it was really wonderful to have my dad to process through with it and talk through what everything meant and what his experiences were. And now, fortunately, he didn't really have a ton of complications throughout his young adult life leading up to when he was listed for the transplant. He's a pretty tough cookie. And he is one who I think even if he was in a lot of pain, probably wouldn't have even acknowledged it to himself. So it was interesting kind of learning all about it and being and thinking back to, all of my, childhood experiences where I, like I said, only can really remember a few times where it was an issue for him, thinking, wow, you have this significant condition, and yet, I can count on one hand the number of times I remember it really impacting our lives, impacting your life. And it, of course, I love and I respect my dad immensely, both of my parents, but it just kind of gave me another newfound appreciation for, wow, you've been dealing with this for a long time. And here I am in my early 20s at the time, just truly understanding how much was happening there. So, it was a very emotional process for all of us as we were working through that together. And then as my dad approached the transplant evaluation process, we began really seriously as a family looking into what would a living donor look like. And so I kind of dove headfirst into trying to find that living donor for my dad and trying to be his, he always said I was his publicist, but trying to be the person who would kind of reach out and, talk to our friends and family about it, and try and reach out to his old colleagues at the newspaper and try and see what we could do. And what what's funny is that the perfect match for him ended up being my mom. And I remember vividly the day that my mom decided to get evaluated for the transplant. We were walking through the grocery store, and she was, I think, just the weight of everything was hitting her, and realizing that, you know, an organ from a deceased donor was not going to come his way in time, and that we were approaching the time where he was going to have to start dialysis, and we weren't really having any luck with other very kind friends and family who had gone to be tested. And I think it just kind of hit her, and she realized, I have to try. I have to get tested. And, you know, maybe it's a long shot, but I have to try. And so I think within just a few weeks, she was tested. She was an incredibly perfect match for him. And they scheduled the transplant for about a month later. And it was just amazing. And, you know, I'm an only child. So walking through that process with my parents was a lot. But looking back on it now, I'm just so thankful for the medical center that helped them through that. I'm so thankful for the support system that we built as a family. I'm so thankful for the resources in the PKD community. And I'm just so thankful that my dad and my mom are both happy and healthy today. And then with my own experiences with PKD, you know, there's been a lot in the last few years, but again, just so happy to have my family to support me with that.
Okay. I want to make sure I understand. Your mother donated a kidney to your father. Correct. Did your dad spend any time on dialysis, or was this a preemptive transplant?
The preemptive transplant. It was pretty close, but it was a preemptive transplant.
And where and when did this transplant take place?
It was the summer of 2017. So we just celebrated 5-year anniversary. And it was in San Francisco at California Pacific Medical Center. And I went through the evaluation process with him. I remember sitting with my mom in the social worker evaluations, and sitting with my dad in all of the different education sessions. And I just thought it was fascinating. I thought it was so cool, the process of the transplant. And I was so amazed at just the skill of the people that we interacted with. I mean, of course, they're, you know, highly accomplished transplant surgeons and nurses and everybody, but just the kindness that radiated from them as well. And, you know, you could really tell that throughout the process, they knew what a big deal this was. And they knew what a big deal it was for, you know, a wife to be donating to a husband, and for a daughter to be there with them, and the daughter to also have that kidney disease causing the need for the transplant. So I appreciated that, you know, they were there to hold space for those big feelings, and also provide that just incredible education and prepare us all so well, and spend so much time answering all of those questions. And I remember coordinating the whole effort of getting there and traveling, and who's going to be in what room, and, you know, how are we going to coordinate two people's recoveries from very major surgeries. I, again, found myself just in a moment of gratitude, just so thankful for my amazing husband who was there with us. We had our two best friends come with us as well. And we kind of divided and conquered, and had a team that was with my mom and a team that was with my dad. And I remember sitting with my dad in the med-surg ICU, and like 2 hours fresh out of surgery, like still with the port in his neck, he's cracking jokes with the nurses in there, and they're like, get out of here, you don't need ICU anymore. And I remember going straight from there to my mom's room, where she's also cracking jokes. And I just really felt the support of our friends, our family, the transplant team, everybody there. in celebrating what a huge thing this was for us, the huge, gift of life, and celebrating that. So I know you're a transplant recipient as well, so I'm sure you feel similarly with just that, the gift of life and those feelings that come along with that. But we stayed with my parents, my husband and I stayed with my parents for a few weeks afterwards, expecting to, need to really coordinate their care, help them with things around the house. And the day they got home from the hospital, this is 4 days post-transplant, they're like, you know what, you can go home. We're just going to walk around the block. We're fine. And we're like, okay, fantastic. So it was great. We've got a lot of funny stories from that experience.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about some of your experiences with PKD. How was it that you discovered that you had PKD, and when were you diagnosed?
I was diagnosed right when my dad was listed for his transplant. And so that was, again, right around 2015, 2016. And for the first couple of years, it was, pretty much just monitoring and focusing on blood pressure, educating on diet, the basics at the beginning. I didn't really have any major concerns in terms of kidney function. And fortunately, I continue to have good kidney function despite other complications that have come up. But I think the hardest thing at that time was that when they were doing the ultrasound for PKD, they actually found a large growth on my ovary that ended up being benign, but at the time was suspicious, and they suspected was cancer. And it was just a few months before my husband and I got married. So again, a lot of life kind of came at us pretty quick with finding out about the PKD diagnosis, possibly having cancer, about to get married. My dad's listed for a transplant, all in our family where, health concerns fortunately hadn't really been significantly on our radar to that point. So it was a lot to process all at once. But fortunately, that growth was benign. We still got married. My husband and I still got married. My dad got that transplant a few years later. And we've continued to just kind of walk through those experiences in life. Within the last few years, I've started to experience more complications that have really impacted my day-to-day life a bit more. Like I said, I'm fortunate to still have good kidney function, but I've struggled a lot with chronic infections and having them go straight to my kidneys. I had a battle with sepsis in the fall of last year, had a lot of stone issues related to that. And I had preeclampsia with my daughter. She was delivered a little early because of that. And I always try to, in those tough moments, focus on the positive and focus on the gratitude. And I'm sure a lot of people with PKD can relate to that, because it truly is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's something that, we deal with all of our lives. We know what's coming down the road. We know what the possibilities hold, what the future possibilities hold. And sometimes that weighs heavy on us, and sometimes it feels like no problem. So I feel like I've definitely experienced the swing both directions of that. And just being able to have those open and honest conversations with my doctors and ask those questions and learn more myself, get more acquainted with, listening to my body and finding out when I need to go seek medical care, what's something that's more typical, what can I do at home to manage it, has definitely been a process. And I'm very glad that I've developed such a wonderful relationship with my doctors, where I am able to come with those open and honest questions, and I know that they're going to give me straightforward answers, give me resources to point me in the right direction of learning even more, and connecting with others. So that's been wonderful. I think also, going back to the transplant experience with my parents, one thing that the doctors mentioned a lot was that caregiver fatigue, and the potential for as you're caring for someone else, especially if it's something that you're dealing with on your own, just being aware of how that can impact you. And so, again, as someone who works in the mental health field, that's something that's always really interested me, and trying to balance those feelings of how do I learn the facts, the biology about what's happening, and the science behind it, and then how do I also process my own feelings about it, and how do I work through those difficult moments. I think like the most difficult kind of emotional moment that has stuck with me throughout all of these years is, not the diagnosis, not finding out necessarily about the transplant itself, but I remember moments after walking my dad into one operating room and walking my mom to the other operating room. Obviously, this is pre-COVID. Going down the elevator from the operating rooms with a nurse, who knew the whole story, knew it was my parents in there, knew I was an only child. And it was the first moment all day that I had been basically alone and without them. And I remember she just kind of reached over and grabbed my arm. She was like, "You okay?" I was like, I think so. She goes, "They're going to be okay. They're going to make it. And your dad's going to be healthy. Your mom's going to be healthy. It's going to be great." And that has just stuck with me for so long. Makes me teary every time I think about it, but it stuck with me because even in those heaviest moments, knowing that we have that community, knowing that we have the support, just makes all the difference. And that one little arm squeeze was a 10-second interaction, but that feeling of support, that feeling of, hey, we got this, it's going to be okay, has stuck with me and just really continued to inspire me all these years later.
Okay. I want to make sure I understand something,
Sure.
Lainie. When you were diagnosed, was that a diagnosis as a result of we're checking on Lainie to see if she has PKD like her dad, or was that a diagnosis of Lainie wants to donate a kidney to her father, we have to see if she's a good candidate?
It was a diagnosis of checking on me to make sure that I'm okay. I think my dad never wanted me to consider donating to him, which I understand, as a parent now myself. But I think before they even started the process of testing other people, when we knew that listing for a transplant was coming, our nephrologist said, you need to find out definitively if Lainie has it or not. And I think my parents had assumed for a long time that I didn't have it because I had made it to, my 20s without any kind of issues. And then the nephrologist said, no, like we need to be positive. We need to look at an ultrasound, and we need to look into things that way. And sure enough, PKD, here I am.
Okay. It's also my understanding that your status as a patient right now, you are not a transplanted patient.
Correct.
You are taking calvaptan to help you stop the growth of cysts in your polycystic kidneys. Is that a fair assessment?
That's correct. Yes. I've been blessed to continue to have good kidney function. Besides those complications that I mentioned, but the function still continues to be good. And so last year, my doctor approached me about considering tolvaptan, and it had been something that we had a lot of conversations about for a few years before then. And truthfully, I'd always kind of written it off, not because I didn't think it worked, but because I thought it was something that would someday benefit, my daughter if she had it. I saw it as something that would help the future generation. I kind of wrote it off for myself. And I'm not quite sure why I did that. I think I just assumed it wasn't going to be something that would work for me. And I just assumed I was going to eventually take the path that my dad took. And I remember shortly after my daughter was born, my doctor talked to me about it and kind of revisited it and explained it again and explained why he thought I would be a good candidate for it, and talked about the total kidney volume and talked about where my measurements were at, talked about the side effects, talked about the risks and everything. And just kind of ended it with, I really think you need to consider it, and I really think it would help you. And I trust that man so much. I love my doctor to pieces, and I really thought about it, and we had a lot of family discussions about it, and decided to go on it. Started it in April, and the rumors are true. It does make you very thirsty. And it's honestly, it's been a really positive experience. I just constantly crack jokes with my family about how much I drink now. It's like probably 2 gallons of water a day, but it also, I think, has kind of given me this strange appreciation for a variety of beverages. Like, I love juice like I never thought I would love it before. Now I love making fun little like orange juices and lemon juices at the end of my day after guzzling 2 gallons of water. So it's kind of been a funny thing, but I feel amazing on it. I feel so good. I think part of that is because I'm so hydrated. But my labs are still looking good. Everything is trending in the right direction. So I'm very thankful that my doctor had that chat with me, and assured me that it was going to be something that would be beneficial, and I didn't continue to write it off, because it certainly has been great for me. I'm looking forward to see the long-term effects that it has, but I'll be a while before I know that.
Okay, but they are monitoring you pretty closely. How frequent do they check on you?
They sure are. Yeah, it's right now I do monthly labs to monitor my liver function, and then I also have my every 3-month labs with my nephrologist, just to monitor general kidney function and everything. But the process has been so easy. They just give me a little slip. I take it to Quest. They take care of business, and it's really easy to just navigate that process. Getting refills and everything has been super easy. The pharmaceutical company that I work with, really easy to contact. So I've been really grateful that I know that I have a variety of lifelines to connect if I have additional questions or additional concerns or anything. And as I've connected with more people in the community who are on tolvaptan, and join a few Facebook groups for people who are on tolvaptan, it's been really reassuring to see that my experiences are similar to others, and if there's ever something that comes up, I know exactly where to go for a variety of different support systems. So very grateful to have them.
Just so our audience knows, in terms of side effects for this medication, in addition to the thirst and the potential issues with your liver, there's a lot of daytime urination. There's a lot of nighttime urination. It might affect your sleep because of that. But overall, the FDA has approved it, and it's a very good medication for slowing down the development of cysts in your polycystic kidney disease. Less cysts, less damaged tissue. Not so quickly, do your kidneys become damaged, and then you end up on dialysis or seeking a transplant. Can you give us the current state of your health, and if you've had any new challenges recently?
Sure. The last 2 months been pretty good. I feel great, feeling very healthy. Over the summer, I had 3 infections come up, and obviously it's very scary when that happens. I immediately think back to the sepsis episode that I had in the fall, and am fearful that that's going to happen again. But in the process of having these recent 3 infections come up, I've been able to have additional conversations with my urologist and with my nephrologist about different things I can do to manage, and different ways that I can immediately seek care that I need without having to go to the emergency room and potentially risk COVID exposure or something like that. So it's been very reassuring to know that when I bring those concerns and I bring those questions, they pretty immediately have a plan of what to do, and it's always very reassuring. But on top of that, my urologist has also recommended that I go seek additional support through. I'm not sure if it's currently a PKD Center of Excellence, but I think they're applying for that at one of the UC hospitals. And I learned a little bit more about what a PKD Center of Excellence is supposed to be like in, one of our recent Advocacy Champion Network meetings, and just learning about all the different resources that they have there with dietitian support and patient navigators and all kinds of different specialties of people who know PKD and know how it can affect different parts of your body. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what that brings. Even though I'm not currently battling a major complication today, I again just continue to feel so grateful and reassured that I have yet another avenue of support to be able to look into that if needed.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because my good friend Lisa Beck was asking me if we were going to talk about that today, and I said, yeah, I'll make sure I slide in there something about the Centers of Excellence, because Lainie and I were just at a meeting this week, so we got the lowdown on all of that. So
yeah.
I want to talk to you about one issue that came up in one of the videos that you made. And again, ladies and gentlemen, anything you want to know about Lainie, there's links, there's YouTube videos, there's newspaper clippings, there's blogs, there's all sorts of things about Lainie in the comments to the original broadcast on my Facebook page. So, please check it out if you want to drill down on our friend Lainie. But one of the issues that you talked about was ADPKD and women's health. Yes. I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that today that you can share with us.
I do. Yeah, that was something that I believe came up when I was asked to record the video for the research summit. I remember one of the questions was, if thinking about your own complications and your own health experiences, talking to a group of physicians and of researchers in the field of PKD, what concerns do you have? What would you like them to pursue? And so that was the first thing that came to my mind, because I remember very early in my pregnancy, even before I found out I was pregnant, my doctor saying, okay, just so you know, with polycystic kidney disease, with the high blood pressure that we know comes with it, comes a risk of preeclampsia. I remember seeing other resources out there that said the same thing. And I remember at the time thinking, okay, like that's, noted, interesting. Didn't really have a gauge of what all that meant. And then as I went through my pregnancy, I started off pretty normal, pretty okay. But at 28 weeks, I started experiencing higher blood pressure than I was used to, even with the medications I was on. Started experiencing really intense headaches and blurred vision. I was hospitalized in the prepartum unit, the antepartum unit, at 28 weeks for a little while they managed that. They eventually switched my blood pressure medications and continued to monitor my daughter, who was and continues to be healthy as a horse, which was great the whole time, did never affect her. I actually told her today, I was like, when mommy was pregnant with you, or when you were in mommy's tummy, mommy's head hurt a lot. And she goes, does it still hurt, mommy? I'm like, no, baby, it feels all better now. And I would do it all over again if it meant I got to be your mama. But, at 2 years old, they don't quite grasp what a headache is just yet. But yeah, headaches were kind of the biggest thing that started all of that. And once I had that hospitalization experience at 28 weeks, I went on bed rest and got really bored around the house, but was just kind of slowly experiencing more and more symptoms of that. So the headaches subsided for a little bit and started to get more intense. I worked with a specialist, a maternal fetal medicine specialist, who on top of my OBGYN monitored blood pressure, monitored, I believe it was amniotic fluid and kind of the ratio of that in relation to preeclampsia. Eventually added more medications like nifedipine to help manage my blood pressure on top of the beta blocker I was already on. And the more I talked with them about it, the more, all of the maternal fetal medicine specialists were just it was like an established fact that if you are a woman who is pregnant with PKD, you will get preeclampsia. And so as I was on bed rest, bored to tears, I was joining a lot of different Facebook groups, joining a lot of preeclampsia Facebook groups, joining a lot of PKD mom Facebook groups, and trying to understand the connection, trying to learn more about it. And what I just continued to find that so many women out there who have PKD and have babies had preeclampsia almost every time, and had very similar experiences to me, where it was well managed and supported well with the physicians that they worked with. But I just kept coming back to why. I know blood pressure and preeclampsia are connected. I know that those things kind of go hand in hand, but it was just interesting to me that PKD was the starting point for so many people. So when I was asked at that research summit, what would you want to know more about? If you could research yourself, what would you want to know more about? That was the thing that I kept coming back to. And, truthfully, that was a big reason why we stopped at one child. And, our daughter is such a blessing in our lives. We're so happy that she's ours. We would have loved to have more, but that fear of revisiting preeclampsia again and those potential complications really held us back. And I remember, even with a smooth delivery, smooth birth and everything, again, my daughter was healthy. She avoided NICU time, even with her a little bit preterm birth. The doctors told us, you were really lucky. And we did everything right. We had you on the right medications. We were monitoring you a lot. You were really great about telling us when you didn't feel well, when something was off. But this was really lucky. And you need to know that should you have more kids, those same complications are going to be there again. Now that you've had preeclampsia once, you're definitely going to have it again. And here's what that road would look like. And I'm perfectly happy having one kiddo. She, like I said, she's our world. But it just is so interesting to me that it seems like there's a little bit of gap in the knowledge in the literature there, at least as far as I know. I'm sure there's a lot out there that I don't know, but it's interesting to me that that's kind of a question mark for women in the PKD community. And I just would love to continue to learn more about what research is being done, what questions are being asked to try and come up with additional answers and additional ways to support women and moms.
Okay. I understand at one point in time, you submitted a story to the Voices of PKD to tell them a little bit about yourself. And just so the folks know, the link to that is streaming across your screen as we speak. And that's a tough link to find, by the way. But I believe if I have the right place, Lainie, it looks to me like a photograph of you dancing with your father at your wedding. Am I close?
Oh, yes. Yep. That's the story I submitted.
Okay. What led you to submit the story?
Well, I think like anything, I was scrolling social media one day, and I see from time to time the PKD Foundation's post, just calling for more submissions to Voices of PKD. And I don't remember what specifically struck me that day, but something about it I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do that. I feel like I have a story to share. I don't know where this will take me, but I would love to just share my story. And if it helps one person, beautiful, fantastic. I'm thrilled. And so I wrote that up, sent it over to them. And I remember very shortly after that was when Elise Hoover contacted me to participate in the research summit and the video we were just talking about. And those two experiences together really just sparked something within me. And I realized, I need to do more of this. I need to connect with others more. I need to share my story more. I need to just continue to be vocal. And I think I was inspired a lot by other PKD patients in the community, other advocates. I know I followed Valen Kiefer on Instagram for a really long time, and she's a very vocal, wonderful, well-spoken advocate for the community.
Well, we love Valen.
Yeah. Yeah, she has some amazing, powerful words, and again, just really inspired me. And then I connected with a few other folks through the research summit, like Carrie Maxwell and a few others as well, whose names are escaping me right now. But I think just hearing them share their stories and hearing, others whose experiences I could relate to in some way, share their stories and share what their experience has been, just made light bulbs go off in my head. And I was like, that's fantastic. I want to do more of that. I want to be in the community. And so I started with that Voices of PKD story, and I've been taking baby steps ever since then.
Well, just so our audience knows, both Val and Carrie have been on the broadcast. So if you're interested in what they had to say while they were here, contact your Uncle Jim. I'll send you the YouTube links to those broadcasts, and you can check them out. And just so you know, my friend, they're both heroes of mine. So you picked very good people as mentors. Very, very good.
They're pretty incredible. And I've only exchanged very, very brief words with each of them through, like an Instagram message here or there, just saying, I think you're really cool. Thank you for what you're saying. So it's been great to continue to follow their journeys and just see how they impact other people, how others in the community in our Advocacy Champions Network impact other people. So again, I hope to take little baby steps at a time to share the same kind of positive influence and continue those connections.
Talk to us a little bit about your experiences at the Research Summit. What was that like?
It was definitely a gigantic leap out of my comfort zone. I'm so glad that I did it, because it's brought me to, where I am today and where I'm, headed in the future. But recording that video, I remember writing out what I was going to say over and over. I remember talking to Elise Hoover at the foundation, like, okay, here's what I think I want to say. Is this what you're looking for? I don't know what to do. And, at that point, all I had done was submit that Voices of PKD story. And she was wonderful, so supportive, gave me so many great ideas of what components of my story to share. And, again, asked me for, those thoughts on future research regarding women's health and everything too. And so then I also had the opportunity to attend portions of the Research Summit. And so my video was shared at one portion, and then there were other pieces that I think they were like panel interviews where other patients were able to answer questions as well. And there were very accomplished physicians and researchers and, folks throughout the field just describing what they've been working on, describing where they're headed. Just a great collaborative discussion. And, I learned a lot of vocabulary that day. I learned a lot that I don't think I knew about the disease and different, markers that they're looking at and different things that they're looking at to try and develop new drugs and new medications. And it was just so cool. I just nerded out that whole time, and it was slightly overwhelming, but I loved it. And again, just continued to spark something within me. And I got to keep on doing this. What I really took away from that was just that feeling of being part of something so rewarding and really getting to see such an amazing partnership. I think that's something that's so cool about the PKD community, is that there's really an amazing partnership between industry, between researchers, between practitioners, between patients. And that really leads to better outcomes for us, for future generations, for the future of the field. I just always reflect on my own family, thinking about how my grandfather was diagnosed late in life and went straight on to dialysis. My dad was diagnosed early in life, received a preemptive transplant, and now here I am on this amazing medication, tolvaptan, that has only been around for a few years here, wasn't even available for my dad. So I can only imagine what the future holds. And it's exciting, and it makes me feel so hopeful for those future generations.
All right. Talk to us a little bit about your experiences with the Polycystic Kidney Disease Foundation's Advocacy Champion Network. How did they reach out to you, and What's going on currently?
Well, I joined about a year ago, and I found out about it by attending the PKD Connect conference that happens every summer, happens every June. And that year it was virtual, and so I was able to just kind of attend here and there. And I remember scrolling through the app, looking at all the different sessions, and seeing that there's one about advocacy. And, at that point, like, it was just kind of vaguely on my radar. I, at that point, had done the Voices of PKD post, and I had participated in the research summit and was definitely actively looking for more opportunities. And so I saw advocacy and I was like, well, that sounds interesting. I'll tune into this. And so I did, and I was so fortunate to be able to connect with people who, now are my colleagues in the Advocacy Champions Network, like yourself. I remember Greg being there. I remember C being there. I remember Scott from Cura being there. And just what they described was fascinating. And I keep saying fascinating, but it really was. It just hooked me. And I loved hearing that, they found like it was such a good use of their energy to be able to help the community in this way, to connect with people in Congress, connect with other advocates across the country, and just be able to share their story, do something as simple as sharing our own experiences to hopefully affect change. And I remember asking a lot of questions that day. I remember asking a lot about, what the day-to-day looks like, what the time commitment looks like. I remember feeling afraid that I wasn't going to be able to devote the time to it that I wanted to. But I found that it's so easy to do. It's so workable. It fits so well into my day-to-day life. I'm able to just kind of, access advocacy things when I get home from work, on the weekends, on breaks and things like that. And the other thing I remember being a little overwhelmed by is my knowledge of how the government works. This is super embarrassing to say, but it does not really go beyond high school government. I studied school psychology, like I said, so there was really not a lot of here is how the government works in that field. I didn't really get a lot of experience with, the difference between the House and Senate. It's quite embarrassing how little I knew about it. So I remember asking Scott questions like, okay, I am not smart when it comes to government stuff. I'm going to need some very basic explanations. And he was like, no problem. We got it. No worries. And as you know, in all of our wonderful meetings, they're so clear about, okay, here's what this means. And there are these beautiful visuals that lay it all out. And now I'm like, why was I ever scared? They're like, we just got an amazing network of support through that. And so again, as I've gotten more involved, or as I, began participating in Advocacy Champions Network, they've had these different challenges that they ask us to do every few months. Like, now we're going to send holiday cards to our representatives. And I remember C organizing a holiday card writing Zoom where we could all get together and, just talk over Zoom while we're writing and send them to representatives. And I sent some to not just the ones in my immediate area, but a few that are in my dad's hometown, so I could share some of that story as well. And at the time, it felt like such a big leap out of my comfort zone. I'm writing a card to a congressman. I've never done this before. What do I say? What do I do? But we had so many great prompts from the Advocacy Champions Network. We had so many great ideas of what to say, how to reach out, how to focus on the Living Donor Protection Act, how to explain what that is. That was a lot of fun. And then that's, since led me to have a few different Zoom sessions with people in Congress nearby, some of their staffers. I Zoomed with a few in Missouri as well, where my dad's from. And again, just had the opportunity to just simply share my story, talk about what the Living Donor Protection Act means to me, talk about why I think that they should co-sponsor it, what it would mean to the community. And every time it gets a little bit easier. It's a little bit easier each time that I talk to somebody, each time that I share my story, each time that I explain why something matters to me. And I think that any whenever I have some kind of like a fear going into it, like, oh, am I gonna say things in the right order that I want to? Am I gonna explain this well? I always find that, at the end of the day, it may seem spooky talking to a congressman, but they're people too, and they want to connect with you. They want to connect with their constituents. They want to hear what their constituents care about, and that has been so apparent to me, and that just being able to share that story, being able to connect with them in that moment, it's been really rewarding. It's been a fun journey so far, and I feel like I look back on 1 year ago when I first joined the Advocacy Champions Network and felt like I didn't know anything, and where I am now, and it makes me excited for the future.
Okay. Well, well, first of all, I want people to know the video that she's referring to. The link for that is streaming across the banner stream as we speak, and of course, again, it's in the comments. The people from the Advocacy Champions must be happy with you because they wrote a blog about you too. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I think I remember that being kind of like a questionnaire that was sent out just to kind of like give more information and everything. But I really enjoyed getting to, share my story within the PKD community that way. And I felt like what I was trying to do as I was answering those questions and sharing some more was just kind of demystifying the process and explaining how, if you find yourself in that kind of emotional slump of, wow, PKD is really tough, or I'm dealing with a really hard complication right now that's making me sad, making me feel a little bit hopeless, that this has been an avenue that for me has really helped me find that balance. I think I said in that post that I always have struggled with worrying about what the future holds. And I think a lot of us experience that too with a genetic condition. We know how it's been for people in our family before us. We kind of know what's coming down the pike, and there's some comfort in that because you know what to expect, but there's also some fear in that, I think, because it's heavy. It's tough stuff to think about your future holding. And so I've really worked hard to, when I experience those feelings, when I feel sad or when I feel scared or anxious or fearful about what the future might hold, I try to think about how I can turn that around and how I can put that energy that I'm using to worry or to stress or to feel yucky. How can I put that into something that puts some good into the world? And it might be something as simple as, a little PKD awareness post on my own personal Instagram that goes to my 5 friends, or it might be something that, is a blog post that goes to the PKD Foundation, or maybe I, follow up on some emails to members of Congress about the Living Donor Protection Act, or maybe I put some energy into writing an op-ed like I did recently. It's been really, I think, helpful for my mental health to have that balance there. And I'm grateful for the opportunities that I've had, especially as of late.
Okay. And again, for people that are interested, here's the link to the op-ed that Lainie's referring to, streaming across the stream. This is the op-ed that I referred to in my introduction to the Fresno Bee. And our girl can write too, by the way. So should be very pleased about that. Let's talk a little bit about your work as a volunteer steward ambassador for the Centers of Excellence. What is it that you do as a stewardship ambassador?
So I'm a stewardship ambassador just for the PKD Foundation, and it just was an opportunity that I saw in the volunteer group to get involved with recently, and it's been a lot of fun. I just connect with the wonderful Krista Hurd at the PKD Foundation, who works in donor outreach, and I just work with her to give thanks to those that have donated. And as we know right now, it's walk season, so we've got a lot of wonderful donors who may not be super familiar with what PKD is, other than someone that they love has it, or someone that they love has experienced it in their lives in some way. And so I just spend a little bit of time sending an email or writing a little colorful card and just sharing that thanks and giving a little bit of information about how PKD has touched my life and what it means, and expressing that gratitude for their donation to continue research and improve outcomes for the future.
Okay. Is there any advocacy work that you have planned for the future that you can discuss with us that's not like a big secret that's going to get you and I both in trouble?
Okay, no secrets. I don't really have any major, top secret missions right now, but I think the thing that I'm most proud of recently is that op-ed that you mentioned. And thank you so much for the kind words about writing. I really appreciate that. It certainly was a labor of love and something that I had a lot of support from my family on writing. My dad is both of my parents are former newspaper reporters. So like, okay, I got to get your input on this. And I think I'm so used to the technical writing that I do in my job that it was hard for me to tap into that creative side, and extra hard to tap into an emotional experience. But like I said, enlisted the support of my family. I've got two incredible friends who live in the DC area and just know that world like the back of their hand. And so I had their eyes on it as well. And then of course our friends at the PKD Foundation and at Cura helping me as well. So I feel like I felt like it was hard to figure out what I wanted to say and to kind of narrow it down. But once I realized that, Living Donor Protection Act has got to be the focus. That's the thing that we've really got to push through the House before the end of the year. We're so close. I was like, you know what? This is it. This is how I'm going to use my words. This is how I'm going to tell my story. And I'm so grateful to the Fresno Bee for publishing it. So, at such a great time to where I feel like so many members of the community can see it and can contact their representatives. One member of Congress nearby that I specifically met with and that I thanked specifically in my op-ed was Jim Costa, Representative Costa, who did sign on as a co-sponsor. And I've got 4 other wonderful Congress men and women nearby that I'm hoping sign on as well, and hoping that they were able to read the op-ed and maybe connect with some of their constituents as well to sign on. But yeah, just that the op-ed I think was my big thing recently, trying to get that hammered out and get that published. So grateful that that's something that I've been able to do. But going forward, I just love continuing to learn and seeing where this world of advocacy and this world of volunteering within the community takes me. I know, coming up, we're hoping to focus on racial disparities in dialysis and access to transplant. So look forward to learning more about the statistics behind that and what specifically I can use my voice for to help support that. And just continuing to build these connections each day, investing my time and energy in this positive way. I think right now I'm not quite sure where that will take me in the long term, but I'm really enjoying the ride, and I'm really enjoying all the connections I've made in just my short time being involved in this community, and just trying to do my best to use my voice to help those generations in the future.
All right. We're in the home stretch, Lainie. Are there any final remarks or statements that you would like to make before we close the conversation this evening? Is there anything I forgot to ask about that you would like to talk about?
No, I don't think you missed anything. Yeah, I again, just expressing my gratitude for having me on your wonderful show. I really appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Just encouraging everyone out there to contact their congressmen and women about the Living Donor Protection Act, contact their senators about that. It's not as spooky as it sounds, speaking from experience. It's easy to do, just reaching out and letting everyone know about that. And again, just if you find yourself in those moments of, wow, this is a tough disease to carry, or I have a fear about something, thinking about how you can use your energy in a way that brings that positive energy.
definitely encourage people to do it. Certainly has helped me, and I know it's helped others as well.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Wow, what a great broadcast. I really appreciate you taking time to come on and tell your story and answer a few of Uncle Jim's silly questions and do such a great job. And thank you so much for educating us and raising awareness tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, I'm going to let you go, Lainie. I've got a few things to do to close up with the audience, but I just want to say thank you again, and what a terrific job. Great job tonight, my friend.
Have a wonderful weekend.
You too. Say hello to your husband and the baby and the dog.
Will do. Thank you.
All right. So everybody, please share the broadcast. Thank you so much for watching. And I will see everybody next week.